Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Samanthe, and I am proud to serve as the President and CEO of the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce and Executive Director for the Success Foundation. On behalf of our incredible staff, our dedicated board members, our enthusiastic ambassadors, and our hardworking panelists, it is my honor to welcome you to the 2025 Education and Workforce Summit. This is my fourth Education and Workforce Summit, and I have to say each year has truly outdone the last. You may have already noticed a few exciting changes to the format this year. And yes, our panelists are gathered around the table, and as always, but take a look at the center screen. That spotlight, that's for you. This year, you are a part of the panel. In just a moment, our fantastic moderator, Joe, will walk you through how it all works, but get ready. This is going to be a really interactive, energizing, and truly collaborative experience. So let's shape the future of education and workforce development together. And we can't do this work alone without the support from our partners. So thank you to our host, the Accessive ShoWare Center. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, Highline College, Southside Alliance, and Virginia Mason Franciscan Health. Thank you to our investing sponsors, Westfield Southcenter and Northwest Center. And thank you to our media sponsor, South King Media, who is standing right over there today recording this event live, so you all can rewatch the content after. And finally, thank you to our printing sponsor, Fast Science Bureau in West Seattle. They printed all of the lovely books that are in your hands today. Thank you to our photography sponsor, Crane Photography, who has been capturing all of our lovely faces this morning. And with that, please join me in welcoming the Mayor of the City of Kent, our very own Mayor Dana Ralph. Mayor Ralph, who is a proud Kent native and fourth-generation resident, is currently serving her second term as the Mayor of Kent. First elected in 2017 and re-elected in 2021, she leads the city alongside a 7-member city council and with over 700 dedicated employees to serve more than 140,000 residents and over 5,000 businesses. Fun fact, she is a fellow Kent Meridian alumni. Go Royals. Please welcome Mayor Ralph to the podium.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I want to start out with a huge shout out to Samanthe and her team, Laborers, Billy and his team. This event today is really that. It's about teamwork. When I think about what our kids need the most, it's a team surrounding them, right? There is not a single one of us in this room that can do what we do alone, and our kids certainly can't navigate what it looks like to go from school into the workforce alone. I think back when I was a Royal, which was a very long time ago, there was that handful of jobs that kids said, I'm gonna grow up, I'm gonna be a firefighter, an engineer, an accountant, and that was kind of the extent of those conversations, a teacher, or I'm just gonna get a job. But there wasn't a lot of focus on career. And the reality is today, we want our kids to have a career, and they have so many choices, but if we're not wrapping our arms around them and guiding the way and showing them what those choices are, every time I go to an employer, they say, we need somebody that can do NDT testing, and I immediately pull my phone out and I'm like, I wonder what that is. I'm gonna guarantee you there's not a lot of 11th graders sitting around going, I think I wanna be a non-destructive testing technician. But it is a really good job. Right? It's the same thing in the trades. It's not just those basic things. I think I want to grow up and be an electrician. There are so many opportunities, but if we're not talking to our kids about what those opportunities are, if we're not talking to our educators about what those opportunities are, our kids are missing out. They're the ones that are not going to be getting the benefit of everything this amazing region has to offer. You drive through the Kent Valley and there are literally thousands of careers. But if you don't even know the businesses that are in those buildings, how do we expect our kids to navigate that? And this room today really represents for me that team that our kids deserve, quite honestly. We have educators, employers, trades, all in the same place talking about what it is they need to provide those services to our kids and how we come together and work together to do that. Cities are playing great roles in that now. As a city of Kent, we have convened roundtables with our employers to say, hey, we know that you're having a workforce shortage. We aren't having a people shortage. Where's the disconnect? What do we do to make sure that people resource that exists in our city can find that employment resource that also exists in our city? But if we aren't cluing the educators in on, hey, could you give them these skills? Then that gap continues to exist. So that's why I am so excited about today. This amazing panel up here that's going to be having those conversations around education, and then the ability for our kids today, the rest of today, to walk around, talk to employers, and really envision what it looks like for them to have a career. You can tell I'm very, very excited about these opportunities. Our kids belong to all of us, right? They start out at mom and dad's house in the morning, they head out to school, in the afternoon they're out and about in our cities, and at this point they're still consumers of our businesses, but guess what, that's also giving them ideas, right, where they need to land. So I just want to say again, thank you to everyone that's putting this together. Thank you so much for taking the time to be focused on our kids. And then thank you again to the educators in the room that are really taking all of this and putting it together and making it happen for our students. I could not be more grateful. And welcome to Kent and welcome to Asst ShoWare Center.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph. And I love that saying, all of our kids belong to all of us. Now I want to introduce you to Joe Van, our moderator today for today's event. Joe is the president of the Highline Public School Board and our very own board director for the Success Foundation. Joe is a 1995 graduate from Tyee High School, right here in our very own Southside region. Joe is heavily involved with civic and community work. So let's please give a round of applause to Joe Van.
Wow, 1995 sounds like really old, so thank you for sharing that. Well, first off, thank you so much for showing up bright and early. I know mornings aren't for everybody, but you being here is a true testament and commitment that you hold for our kids and our community. About a few years ago, like six, I was having dinner with my wife and daughter, and out of nowhere she goes, Dad, how do I figure out what I want to do? How did you deal with that? To be honest, I didn't know. At that age, I didn't have any direction. I know I wanted to become a police officer and I wanted to go to school, but I really didn't know. I went to school, and I went to school to become a police officer in criminal justice, but guess where I ended up? In supply chain, in manufacturing, in the medical industry. So it changes. But I'm here in front of you talking about how we need to help our students find the path forward. That question that my daughter asked me stuck with me because it is the same one that so many of our students are asking, and that's why we're here today. Like Sammy said, my name is Joe Van. I serve on the Success Foundation, and I am also the president of the Highline School Board. But most importantly, I'm a father. A pretty cool one if you ask anybody. Like many of you, I want to make sure that our kids are ready for the future that they choose. Not one that is handed to them or one that is voluntold. We want all of our kids to be successful, independent, and to be honest, not living in the spare bedroom until they're 30. But let's face it, the path to adulthood, careers, and independency is really murky. Schools are working hard to prepare our students. Businesses are looking for talent. Policymakers, they're trying to keep up with the support these pipelines. And our students, they're standing in the middle of all of this trying to make sense of it. The challenge, we're not always talking to each other. The opportunity, well, that's why we're here today, to change that. But before we dive in, let's hear from the people at the heart of the work. Panelists, I'd love for you to introduce yourselves, your name, your role, and where you're from. And I'm going to start with from the far right-hand side here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Billy Hetherington. I'm the Political Director for Labor's Local 242, the planner of the Career Showcase at ShoWare Center that will be after this, and serve as the CTE Director for the Highline School District.
Hello, I'm Dr. Concie Pedroza. I'm the Superintendent of Tukwila School District.
Good morning, everyone. Emily Whittman. I am the Key Association Washington Business and about 2010 to Huma grad. So I'm one of these I'm telling you guys. That's
Hi everybody, Deepak Devasthali. I'm currently the president of St. Joseph's Medical Center in Tacoma. I actually was a graduate of Panther County High School. Habit, nobody knows where that is. It is in the state of North Carolina. So.
We accept you. Geoff Floyd, I'm with University of Washington's Professional Continuing Education, and I'm a proud graduate of Rogers Rams, the Rogers High School in Puyallup. I do have a bone to pick with Ken Meridian.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ivan Duran. I'm the proud superintendent for Highline School District and a proud graduate from Denver West High School in Colorado.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Bautista. I'm the Assistant General Manager for Westfield Southside.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jayden Young, and I'm a 10th grader at Choice Academy.
Hello, everyone. Jesse Johnson, proud Eagle, Federal Way High School grad, former City Council of the Federal Way, former state representative. Currently, I serve as the Director of Outreach for the Treasurer's Office. Good morning, everybody. Josh Gerstman, Vice President Institutional Advancement at Highline College. Very proud to sit next to one of our great trustees from Highline College as well. I'm a graduate of Natick High School back in the Boston area. The only reason you would ever know that if you know about the Fleeting Pass back from the 80s. He was also one of our grads. But I'm a proud dad of a Kenwood grad who's now fully employed and fully housed on his own. So
Hello, I am Madison Ramirez. This is the Northwest Center. I am an employer consultant. We work with those who have basic disabilities, so they're at 2 for that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marisol, Tapia, I am with the Workforce Development Camps at Seattle Fish County. I serve as the Director of Strategic Communications at here. Hi, everybody. I'm also with the Workforce Development Council at Seattle King County, Tessa McClellan, Director of Industry Strategies. And I have talked about big Sherwood Revertible 10 by Wages I still have a Shoreline.
watch. I didn't think that I was going to have to figure out where I went to high school. I'm with Comcast. I've been with the company going on 26 years, and we connect people to what's important in their lives every day, and education and students is definitely one of those focal points. 87 Wilson High School from Tacoma. So it's not named that anymore, but still a proud round.
Hi everyone, Grand Rising, Treanna Holiday. I am the Communications Director for Washington State's Office of Equity. Proud Garfield Bulldog graduate. Seattle. I'm glad that we got to throw our high schools out there. Anytime a Garfield grad can do that, we're gonna do it. Thank you.
Today's conversation is going to be informal. Think of it more as a conversation than a lecture. I'll be asking a few guiding questions. But panelists, please jump in, agree, disagree, challenge ideas. That's what makes this real. With that said, I'm going to give each of our business sectors an opportunity just to share an elevator speech about what is going on in the current state of their fields as it relates to the workforce pipeline. And with that, I'm going to start with our industry leaders. Terry, I'm going to kick you off and then go to Deepak with Virginia Mason and then Jason with Southcenter. So.
Again, from our standpoint, we connect families, we connect students, we connect future students that may be going to that next career. So we are very, very focused on making sure that our networks are secure, reliable, and there for our customers. But workforce development, I think, from our career pathways that we offer for our communities is, there is this thing called BEAD, that's broadband equity and deployment, that's coming from the federal government. And there's going to be a lot of jobs in the fiber deployment sector, and there are some great careers in that sector. I know most of our business partners, they usually get a fiber splicer in the door, and that person, whether it's male or female, has 2 or 3 job offers to move up the ranks. So this is a growing career pathway, and offers a great middle income type profile and income level for individuals that are interested in that sort of thing. Very independent career, because you got to be able to work on your own, but also focused on teamwork to get the job done.
Okay. Thanks, Joe, for that question. The problem, I'll simply state, is twofold. We're not that far removed from the pandemic, so we're still normalizing to what the future is going to look like from a healthcare workforce perspective. And also, in the current state, there's a fair bit of uncertainty surrounding legislation that has a great deal of impact on the ability of industry to continue on as is. An example of that is Medicare and Medicaid. Any changes to that affects how we can employ, operate, etc. So, as we normalize, given these scenarios, what we're doing is sort of looking at things from about 3 different perspectives, that as a way to improve our workforce, and not just recruitment, but also retention and growth. One is exposure. So as we look at the Chamber of Commerce and Workforce Discovery Lab, bringing students into our industry provides a great deal of exposure, so people have a vision and want to come in. The second real feature is providing experiential training, so residency training programs, whether that's college students coming in and doing radiology technologist training on the job site, or us bringing in nursing residents, or us creating experiential sort of pipelines for certified nursing assistants, so they come out as high school students into CNA roles, some training, and then we grow them to nurses and beyond. So these type of things we have to continue to do, we have done. And then the last thing is building partnerships. So Dr. Duran's here, we've got Josh Gerstman from Highline College as well. And so building these partnerships to sort of have this connection from high school to college into workforce, or high school into workforce, so that we can create a pipeline that allows us to have a workforce that reflects the communities that we serve. So those are the ways that at least we're trying to solve it. But the pandemic and also some variability surrounding the current political environment with funding has shaped our current workforce realities.
One of the things I've seen in kind of our industry, specifically kind of retail, Westfield hosting over 200 plus retailers, is there's a severe lack of leadership and kind of operation focus. So kind of post-pandemic, the customer wasn't really inside the malls, wasn't really inside the stores. And I feel there kind of has been a little bit of a disconnect between stores and consumers. So with leadership, there is very high turnover rate, especially in retail. One of those driving factors being poor leadership. So as an operator, it's very difficult to put the customer ahead when leadership is lacking. So one of the things we would like to see, especially with workforce pipeline, is seeing a lot more leadership focus and kind of getting back into developing these industries again. Having that consumer focus, having leadership focus, and making sure everything is good for the consumer. Because at the end of the day, we're very service driven. We're here to provide not only products, but also an experience.
Next up in our panelist presentation would be our policymakers. Megan, Aaron, what's the current state of your field, and how does it relate to the workforce pipeline?
So I'm here because Megan Matthews couldn't be. So I will say that, when it comes to the pipeline, policies are shaped by different experiences, lived diverse experience. And we talk about this a lot in terms of how do we make sure that young people see themselves in government, particularly in state government. And some of the work we're doing at the Office of Equity is to showcase how our diverse team, we're one of the most diverse teams in the state government at the Office of Equity. And so we really work to reflect that diversity internally, but also showcase it externally, so young people can see themselves in government. That's what's going to help us really drive forth new policies that shape and are reflected of those diverse lived experiences out there. And so much of it has actually been showcased in some of the ways that we have heard from community members about what they need and how those policies are reflecting those needs. But that means there needs to be a both-and approach, where not only are we opening up the doors for young people to be a part of state government, for them to actually get these jobs, but also to hear from community members and to have diverse teams inside that bring in community voice. And so we're seeing a lot of that with some of the work we're doing to implement impact teams throughout different agencies across state government. And these impact teams often involve a community member or several community members as well, to ensure that we are always being led by community voice. One of the most current executive orders that came out actually is about competency-based hiring. And so moving away from some of the barriers that have been caused by, strict requirements for hiring, allowing us to hire folks who can do the job versus the folks that have X amount of experience or this degree or that degree. We're really moving forward in a way that opens up the doors to allow folks to showcase, hey, through all of this experience, these are the skills I have. This is the kind of job I can do. And opening that up, that access up, allows for folks to actually apply for these jobs and get them. And so we're working in multiple ways to remove these barriers and increase diversity.
So from my perspective as like a labor macroeconomist, I think we're really at an inflection point in the labor market. And that's gonna require substantive changes in our education system. So 3 points that I'll leave you with. First, the number of 18-year-olds in the United States is going to peak next year. After that, in the next 5 years, there's about a 500,000 drop in the number of 18-year-olds between 2026 and 2030. And that's going to obviously pass through, our secondary, post-secondary education system. We're already starting to see kind of consolidation on higher education standards and the types of the number of students need to serve. The second point that I'll leave you with is, you look at the high-level economic stats, the market looks fine, unemployment is low, but really we're on a 2-track labor market right now. There's kind of relatively low unemployment and kind of robust hiring for skilled vocational work, frontline service work. At the upper end of the education distribution, it's much softer labor market. Part of that is cyclical around interest rates and cost of risk in our economy, but I think part of it is also structural. We basically doubled the number of college degree holders over the past decade in the United States, whereas the number of vocational degree holders, anyone with some education less than the college degree, is flat. That's a big divergence in where our economy's labor market needs are versus what we're producing. And then finally, changes in technology, AI, and what that's going to mean for skill demand and education. So all that to say, I think the next few years are really going to force us to think precisely about what we mean by skill, and not just conflate it with a degree or credential. What are the activities that our employers need, the skills that they need, independent of the credential that our students.
Thank you very much. We're going to speak to our labor unions and our labor partners, Marisol and Billy.
When I think about this state of the workforce and our workforce pipeline, it's very complex, right? So the one hand, we have members that are seeking a traveling school, and then on the other side of this equation, we have workers young adults that are trying to get into be better jobs. And one of the issues that, we also see in our role, what we're seeing, I believe, from market data, as 1% of the council, is the fact that many of the jobs in King County, they pay wages that are too low for the cost of living that we're seeing, continuing to, housing costs are, increases on the least, but also the jobs, like I said, don't pay enough. So then we have this revolving door where workers will stay on any one job for a very long period of time, and then employers are constantly having to continue to hire, and then have these many openings that we see. But we also have issues in terms of access. How do we make access to skills, access to credentials, college more affordable, but also more accessible, for students, especially also for students of color, workers of color, who we now are overrepresented in jobs at low-paying wages, and also have, work barriers faces those persons. So, just to give you a sense of scale, in King County, 27% of people are struggling to move into cities. We also see that we have a high shortage of, for example, registered nurses. And we also have an overflow of people who are doing like CNA. So how do we make that transition from CNA to nursing and make those pathways more accessible? And that's where our role is, like, how do we make those individuals accessible, but also how do we make the right partnerships, and also the funding that we need to break down and make those opportunities more accessible and things. We're also looking at how do we make those decisions, those opportunities, those are good jobs, accessible to, and many workers are going to transition, and we can show that they're partnering, with the organizations that are actually taking the sleep out of that, increase those efficiencies and make those pathways, much more accessible.
Good morning again, everybody. Billy Hetherington with Labor's Local 242, and I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out my high school, right? Proud graduate of Kentwood High School. But, go Concie. So again, I'm with the Labor's Union, and I've been a member, second generation member. I've been a member now for about 25 years. And when growing up, being on the job site from the time I was in the eye of my father, he always said, never ever do this career. So I was kind of one of those that if you're going to make it in this world, you go off into college, right? So I went, graduated from WSU, go Cougs. But in the meantime, my dad kind of screwed up along the way. He got me in the union to help pay for my own schooling in the summertime. So being my first job and loved sports was Lumen Field, Seahawks Stadium. I just love the camaraderie and the teamwork atmosphere that the trades bring to the job site. And graduated, deep around in the banking industry, and called my dad up one day and said, hey, suit and tie, Billy, climbing the corporate ladder is not for me, right? So I actually left as a personal banker working at Wells Fargo and got a $5 an hour raise to go back into the trades. And I rose up through my career, and, I wanted to a point where I was doing $100 million projects and general foreman and having huge crews underneath me, and wanted to do something to give back, right? And wanted to change the narrative and to say that, college, for those that aren't meant to go to college, there are opportunities out there for you to make a career and own a home and build generational wealth and do all the things that me and my family have done. So, I got in as an apprenticeship coordinator, and I really learned early on that we're in the trades or an aging workforce. And thinking that at 36 years old, I was going to be working with a bunch of 20-somethings, early 20-somethings, realizing that a lot of people that were applying for the trades looked like me or was my age. And I'm like, well, what happened to that missing decade, or what is everybody doing after they graduate high school, right? And so, morphing into being the political director, never thought I'd ever get into politics, probably like Dana and probably like Tracy, but it's one of those things where policy leads a lot of these changes that we try to do. And getting into being the advisory chair for the Highline School District, and and working with Highline, working with Renton, working with Bellevue, working with a lot of the school districts that are represented here. Getting pre-apprenticeship programs put in these school districts so we can create pathways that these kids can actually see themselves doing the work in the high school and doing the hands-on stuff that CTE provides, and the industry partners come in and trade and train and advise on what they need for the next generation of workers to do is huge. And that's why this career fair today and a lot of the other things that we do are really huge. And we need to build those pipelines for those students that don't go to WSU or don't go to UW or don't go into our college system. So,
Thank you very much. Now we're going to listen to our educators, our education leaders. We're going to listen to Dr. Duran, Dr. Pedroza, Geoff Gerstman, and Jeff Floyd. So,
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here today, and I think I'll just start first with, in Highline, we're really unique because our students have a lot of opportunities for choice, and so we have a number of schools where students can go into. A school like Racebeck Aviation High School, Maritime High School was here today, Choice Academy, and so that's great. But in our comprehensive schools, we have been really working on what's called secondary school redesign, and it's this idea of thinking around how do we bring more rigor and relevance into our school setting so that our students can really be prepared for the future that they choose. And so that has been a really great opportunity for us to do what's called community-based design process. We're really working with students and families and community members in those areas to really think about what is it that we want to create. And so we are starting to see some pathway works coming out of some of our high schools, and what's called deeper learning and even changing of schedules, a deeper commitment to thinking around how we could provide more opportunities for students to potentially earn their A degree before they actually leave high school, which is a very common thing in some other states. And then finally, just making commitments for really deeper learning with even the idea of our IB program way over at Mount Rainier High School. So we are really working to ensure that our students are being prepared for the future that they choose by providing these opportunities that they can get to the high school.
Good morning. As a school district that is a one high school school district, we have to rely really on our local city government to support our work. Additionally, we also have partnerships. So our partnership with the consortium, where we are working with Highline School District, as well as I believe it's Federal Way and other school districts as part of a consortium group. So our students also have those opportunities to go to the Skills Center. But in our own district, we also have to think about what are our barriers. We're highly diverse. 80% of my students actually qualify for free and reduced lunch. So our students have other barriers, right? Many of them are working to support their family, babysitting their brothers and sisters, walking them to school, and then also want to participate in what high school life is. But actually, they want these experiences. And so we're trying to, I'll put closer to myself, sorry. So we're trying to think about, so we've put some of our investments in career technical education, and we do require as a credit that every graduate actually has CTE on their transcript, because we believe it's important that they actually have those exploratory experiences. And then we have to think innovatively about how we bring industry also into our schools, because barriers like, skills, supplies, transportation is a huge barrier. Funding, I'm a district that's actually struggling financially. So I have to think through all of these things, but still get the student experiences. So we would love partnerships. If you're interested in partnering with us, that's great. One example is last year we brought in a dental experiential experience for a whole week with the students, and 60 of my students walked out with waived fees to apply to be dental assistants right away. So our students, they were super excited. They did that exploratory work. They learned about all of the careers in the dental industry. And so we have to think very creatively, career fairs, information sessions, etc. So yeah, very, very thinking about this all the time, thinking about our investments, and thinking about how do we really prioritize multiple experiences. We just can't rely on one thing. We're a small district. We have to be really creative and innovative about how we bring these experiences to our students.
Great, and over here, Josh Gerstman with Highline College, and glad to be following our awesome partners from Tukwila and Highline Public Schools. And just a quick point, that note on partnerships, Highline College, Highline Public Schools, two different entities that we share a name. Sometimes we get confused, they get confused, we all get confused, but I don't think that's okay, because we want to be seen in that continuum. We want to be seen as part of that ongoing opportunity to get access to education. The question on there, what are the skills? First of all, that perennial skill, math. We need our students to continue in math, to be engaged in math, to feel comfortable and confident and know that it's something that is always going to be part of your life. That question of when am I going to use it? Every day. So we want to make sure that we find ways to keep students of all ages engaged and learning. But even more importantly, we want our students to be aware of these wonderful opportunities in our community, these high-paying and good demand jobs, the jobs that Terry was talking about a moment ago, the things that we've heard about. So the programs like we're doing today, that exposing our students to the workplace, to get them in there, to get work-based experiences, whether it's at the middle school, high school, or college level, open up your workplaces so that they can see how what they're learning applies in those workspaces, and they can start making connections to what I'm doing and thinking is actually applicable in a job that I could have tomorrow, next month, or in a few months when I complete this program. So the more that we can work together, I look at Bob Livingston out there. A few years ago, Bob was part of a group that came to Highline College. It was one of the first times that we did an employer roundtable, so that we could hear directly from you what you're looking at and trying to, and when you're hiring and what your needs are. We've been having those conversations. We've been doing curriculum development. They're called day comes, where we can look at every one of our programs. We just continue to invite you to be part of that, because it's so important that our students are getting taught real world skills that you are seeing, and just as important, that you come and learn about our students so that you know how to welcome them into your workplace and make space. And if you've been doing things the same way for 40 years, I got a hint for you. It's time to change. It's time to make sure that your workplace also is going to be welcoming and supportive to today's students, so that we can all be moving forward together.
Geoff Foy again with University of Washington's Professional and Continuing Education. So everyone is probably aware that yes, UW offers these bachelor's and master's and doctorates, but we also offer these non-credit pathways to different skills and competencies that are aligned with the different kinds of demands that employers want for their employees, and also the job seekers trying to get the skills or competencies to get those jobs. So what I always try to do when I'm out in the community listening to the different employers across all industries is to make sure that I listen and hear what they think are the priorities for training. And then our programs, those short-term certificates, those standalone specializations and classes, are aligned with all of that. They meet those needs. Because I like to think that we're in the business not to empower the learner of all ages, but we're in the business to make opportunities for people to empower themselves. They take the decision to take these kinds of programs to be able to benefit their job seeking, their skilling up. They're the ones that take ownership in it, and they get great value once they know that they're a stakeholder in this whole learning process. So my job is to be able to connect with all of you and the community partners here so that we can play that role of filling that gap where we see that need for this kind of non-credit education that's so valuable for a lot of people that don't want the bachelor's or the master's or the doctorate. They want credentialing, they want advanced training, but they don't want that extra area on the credit side. So we provide that opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing the current state of your industry. We're going to move on to our questions now. So I'm going to ask some guiding questions. I'm going to ask some people to jump in. Please, panelists, remember, jump in, agree, disagree. Let's have this conversation. So this first question is for our industry. As a people manager, there are some things that I wish when I'm hiring candidates out there, there's some things that I know that they're missing. So the question to our industry leaders, what are the skills students and candidates are underprepared for when they're entering the workforce? Terry, I'm going to start off with you.
Thank you for starting with me, but I'm going to start with the customer service and the customer experience, because people think, oh, cable industry, monopoly, you guys are the only ones in town. No, that is not the case. We compete every day on every line of business, and we know that we have to be better, and we need to make sure that we're connecting with our customers and making sure that they feel valued, and they understand the value that they're getting from our service. So customer service is number one, and then I think it's really adaptability. Industries change every other day, it feels like. and being able to thrive in that environment and being adaptable to that, whether that's new leadership that comes in and how to adjust and not be so rigid and know that, hey, there's a pathway forward, and let's work as a team to get there. So those are some of the soft skills. Obviously, skills in terms of kind of what pathway they want to go, whether it's a very technical path or it's data driven and financials. But those can be learned. I think the soft skills are, really that person needs to come with the right attitude and know that they are part of the solution rather than expecting somebody to solve the problems each and every day.
Jayden, Amon, our students here in the panelists, what are your thoughts in regards to what Terry's talking about?
I definitely agree with everything he's saying. At Ridgeback Aviation, we have a very strong college and career center. So we're already taught these soft skills, hard skills that we're need in the workforce in the future. And I think from what I've heard from my other friends who went to other schools in Highline School District where maybe the college and career center isn't as strong or isn't as accessible to the students, they hope to learn like these conversation skills, communication skills, how to talk to adults, how to use business cards, like those small things that Ridgeback does. I think kind of is weaker at these other schools, I would say.
Me personally, what I see at Choice Academy is a great amount of ambition, but a lack of opportunity.
Yes.
And what Terry here is saying is it's wonderful. And we honestly need a lot more advertisement because at Choice Academy we have a lot of students who are looking for jobs, but none of us can really find an opening or anywhere that's like actively advertising. So we need students to build better communication skills so that they can better reach out because we don't really have college and career centers at Choice Academy.
I'd like to add to it too, because one of the things that we realize in our application process is the need for folks to have an equitable mindset. And what does that mean when we're thinking about how we increase awareness in our workforce and in our pipelines? This is, what are you doing in your personal life that is really centered around anti-racism, around equity, around understanding folks who don't look like you? And I realize that a lot of adults don't even have this. So if we are putting this mindset in the young people to understand, a lot of spaces are looking for you to have a broadened approach, a broadened understanding about the world we live in. And then we actually come in with, probably a different type of mindset that allows for you to not only work well on diverse teams, but to also understand the people you're serving in any sector, right? And so it kind of goes back to what Terry was saying about customer service. When you have a great mindset that incorporates other people's lived experience and you're on your own personal journey and walk of life where you have incorporated some form of, do I understand other cultures? Do I understand different identities, intersectionality? Do I understand the need for accessibility even in the work that I'm doing, which is really increasing right now in state government? How are we serving those who are other abled, right? And so I really appreciate what you're saying because some of that is us being upfront about that and making sure that our young folks understand the need to have these equitable mindsets when they're approaching workforce.
Real quick, coming from the trades and being a second generation person in the trades, I would tell all young people to be patient these days. I mean, we have information at our fingertips. I always tell people, if you want information, consult the Googles, right? So, I mean, it's just we're in this generation that's instant gratification, instant information at your fingertips. But when you get in the trades and you're trying to learn a skill, it really took me about 10 years before I sat back and could say that, I really could master a job from the start to the finish or see what's coming next. And so be able to think ahead and move ahead. And I just feel that a lot of the youth that we see these days, getting into the apprenticeship, they want to rise. They have such ambition throughout other students said out there that they want to rise to the top right now. And just to have patience, put in the work, and you'll get there.
I think mentorship and volunteerism, if I was to do it all over again, I think I would really recognize the mentoring that has happened throughout my life, and people helping me move forward. And if I was a student, go and try and find those opportunities. They may not pay a lot of money, and maybe that's you still need to have that. However, they build skills, and those can go on the resumes, and those show up in terms of the job interview and the stories to basically showcase your skills, because it's one thing to have a great resume. If you can't express that in an interview and be able to describe how you can incorporate those skills, that doesn't help you get the job. But also, it's those people that you're working for that see those skills in you, that empower you and maybe make you understand that there's a job opportunity over here. You should apply for that. You have, empower yourself, and you have what it takes to have that job. And then learn from that and find that next mentor to help you along. That was, I think, probably everybody on this panel probably pick out 5 or 6 people that helped them get to the place that they're at today, from a mentor or some sort of coach along the way.
So there's 2 words that I just wanted to convey. One is trust and one is connection. So, I remember who I was at 18 coming out of high school. Not the person I was at 25, not the person I was at 32. It's an evolution, right? And so when we talk about how we can get to that trust and being able to connect, it takes a lot of help. I agree with you, Terry. It takes a lot of help from people around you, but you have to come in with curiosity and be open to the experiences. So for me, I think what's important for our students to hear is, if you have a sense of where you want to go all in. There are enough people in the industry who want to see you succeed, because if you ask any leader in this room what their legacy is, the answer is people. And the way we cultivate that legacy is by really setting up the next generation. And so there are people there who want to see you be successful. So come with an open mind, be curious. Humility is important, so that you build trust and then have the ability to connect to either what you're doing or who you're around.
With that, I'm going to move to our next question to our education leaders here. I'm going to pose this to Dr. Duran because I'm his boss. I don't like to say that very often. But what are the biggest challenges in preparing our students to the workforce?
All right, get this for my evaluation. Here we go. I think for me, it's really about the knowledge and understanding that our students need to have around what they need to do to be prepared for the future. I think there's a real opportunity for us to, I think we do some good work at the high school level, but I think we have to go back earlier to middle school level, to where we start to give students more opportunities to explore career options. So expansion of career and technical education is going to be so important for us to think about that. And then lately we've been having conversations around, I think we even have to go further back, even to elementary school, to be having students just think about what are they interested in, what are they passionate about. Dr. Pedroza and I are part of the State Roundtable sponsored by the Gates Foundation, and in one of the recent meetings we had the university presidents and some of the private colleges and universities there, and when they were talking about students that are actually being successful in post-secondary and actually finishing college, getting that 4-year degree, are the students that are passionate about what they're learning and studying. They're not necessarily the students that know what they want to do with that degree, but they are passionate about what they're studying. So that's the opportunity for us to think around how we can create more passion for our students. How can we really help them understand that this future is changing rapidly, and artificial intelligence and robotics is going to change the workforce in some ways that we can't even imagine right now. So how do we prepare them for jobs that have not been created yet?
Thank you so much.
How was that? Was that right?
I say that was great. So one of the things I just want to piggyback to what you said earlier, our students are so different than they were 10 years ago, and then our students are even more different since post-pandemic, right? And so we're trying to do a lot of work and being really thoughtful around social emotional needs, making sure safety is a priority, and our students are demanding even media safety, internet safety, cyber safety, all of those things. And so, so they have an awareness of the impact of all of these things on their lives. And so our students are different. And so we have to adapt. We have to make sure that we are adapting to AI demands. We're adapting to, even since our students are so diverse, we actually have in our school community, we already have a foundation of students who have to learn to work with different cultures, different languages, different religious backgrounds. So they already have those soft skills that you need, right, to really navigate how to work with people. What we have to do better is thinking about how we promote more collaboration, more hands-on experiences, because that's what they want. They don't want, to be honest, some of the students want to go on their phones, right? Like, that's just where it is. You probably have employees that do that too. But they want to be engaged. Our students want to be engaged, they want to be connected, and they want to know why they're learning what they're learning and how it connects to other things. And so we have to think broadly, and we have to talk to our students about what they need, but we also have to prepare them, because we're not preparing them for the business world. If they land a position, or even don't even know how to apply for a position, and so we have to think about how we're bridging all of those things. But we need to listen to the students, and we need to hear and understand and observe how they're interacting in the classroom, and we need to adapt, and the business world also needs to adapt and listen in as well, because that's what's gonna change for the future for our students.
Okay, I want to piggyback on a couple of points. So for the world of professional and continuing education, those certificate programs and classes, what we're concerned with are making those accessible, so that people who have a part-time job, or if they have a full-time job, that they can access this information when it's convenient for them, so it's online or it's hybrid. We want to make sure it's affordable, so the pricing is lower. We develop scholarships to fill the gap so that these individuals can actually pay for this kind of certificate, because these non-credit programs are not funded by Title IV funding, the federal financial aid. So affordability, to get them to this one next one, the last one, this connection. There's a lot of different individuals that if we have it accessible, affordable, there's a lot of diverse individuals that can come into our programs, and then that's the magic. It's the networking with that subject matter expert, that industry leader who's teaching the class. It's the connection between the students coming and representing all kinds of industries, that now they can learn from each other and have that beautiful connection. So that's what I've been seeing and what we see as priorities.
I love what's being said. One of the things that was kind of brought to my attention this week is that the fastest growing number of jobs in our state require either a master's or our middle skill jobs that you have to have a high school diploma, but not necessarily a bachelor's degree, right? So increasing access to high quality education and pathways for those students going to community colleges, getting that career and technical education, getting certifications. I did want to highlight a program in Federal Way High School, a pre-apprenticeship program. I think Sharisa's in the back. Shout out to Sharisa who leads that program. But this program is running start for the trade. So young people at 16, 17 years old get job site training, get their career and technical education in the classrooms, learning about construction trades. They also, this past Monday, they're doing the forklift training. They're getting these trainings that they can get money now. And with some of the work happening at the state level, a bill was just passed and signed into law yesterday, House Bill 1121, which now says 16 and 17-year-olds can work the same number of hours during the school year as they do during the summer or holiday breaks. Because when you go into the classrooms, the number one thing you hear from kids is we need money now. Before we can think about tomorrow, we have to get through today. And then with the number of multi-generational households, the needs for our kids to work right now, we need more programs like this that allow them to make this money right now. So this summer, they're getting a boot camp where these kids can get $2,000 while getting on the job site training that is required for some of these jobs. And so I think we just need to increase that so that they can get through today before they can even think about tomorrow. So that's one of the things that I highlight.
might as well give me the 1 minute warning now. I really quick add on. I'm looking out at this great crowd this morning, and Joe, you said we could challenge back a little bit. This is advertised as an education and workforce summit, and if we don't pick up this conversation again until we're in this room next year, we have failed. We have to look at this as, that was a quick name. We have to look at this as the beginning and the extension of our conversation. And there are opportunities, the chamber hosts meetings throughout the year, the Workforce Development Council, the Southside Alliance, we're all in these different spaces together. Let's make the time to have conversation. You all have the answers. If I had my fundraiser hat right now, they said the money is in the room, you just need to reach into your pocket and pull it out. But the ideas are in the room. I see it on your faces. You're sitting there thinking, if only I could jump up right now and shout it, we don't hear it. Let's continue this conversation, because it's not all gonna end here in our 30 seconds that we have left, but rather if we can continue to have those. My Highline co-workers over there are happy to come meet you where you're at. Let's just keep having this conversation, please.
And then Jayden, what do schools or training programs need to do better to support you and all the rest of your classmates?
So I've learned a lot about first impressions, how to build resumes and all that, but I really want to learn more on how to keep those connections. I think I meet a lot of people, email a lot of people, but then it kind of stops there. I want to foster like long-term relationships where we can share resources and opportunities, and I think learning that would be very important as a student to find those internships, mentorships, apprenticeships, and all that. So I think that would be good.
I would like to agree with what Amanda said. We should continue to build more career centers in our schools, build them up higher, more resources. And we should also teach kids how to further give better first impressions and increase their memorability on the resume list, because there are plenty of people out there, but we need to make sure that you stand out and that you are good for this job based on your experience and your impressions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So there's some great responses up here. One is offers certifications and boot camps for students to try career paths they haven't tried previously, and come out to high schools where certs that put them right to work with a higher wage. That's great. Another response was decrease administrative barriers to partnerships and ensure that we are clear on any neuro and other differences of students so we can tailor programming to meet student needs. What are your thoughts on that, Amanda? I mean, are those additional opportunities that we could support you with?
Honestly, I think all of those are great ideas, and continuing to ask input and opinions is also a great idea. I think we can always use improvement, no matter what it is, and yeah, so.
Thank you. And I still have a student in high school, and one of the things he has shared with me is he needs to be off of his phone. So he likes reading out of books now, since we had an issue with one of our internet, we had internet issues, and we couldn't.
You should have called.
I should have. Should have. But it was getting back into reading off of paper instead of being in front of that computer or on that phone. Having access, having something tangible, but also writing. He missed that so much that he said, you know what, Dad, I'm going to forgo my laptop right now. I'm going to start writing some of my reports out so I can hand it in. His penmanship has gotten much better, so I greatly appreciate that. All right, thank you so much, students, for those responses. Our next question, Emily, this is for you, for our policymakers and industry. We talked about wages. How do we balance entry-level wages with the realities of living expenses? How do we create jobs that allow students to start out but also live?
Thank you for that question. And this is something that we in the employer community think about constantly, especially in an area like this where there's so much opportunity, but with opportunity comes pressures on all parts of your life and the economy. So we are a business association. We've got 7,000 members. I like to remind folks though that 90% of our members are small businesses, and 90% of your employers in your community are small businesses, and they probably have less than 10 workers. The resources and needs and pressures that they face are far different than those employers at the top of our economy who are incredible leaders but have resources and different opportunities and access and brands to engage students and to engage workers. So I'm privileged to be on the board of directors of a local manufacturer. Our wages were pretty standard and a little higher than the area. In the last few years, we've seen a 45% increase in wage pressure. The other thing that we see at the same time, though, is an increase in the cost of being a business and an increase in the benefits that employees are both receiving through state policy, but also asking as your employer of choice. So we have a lot of balancing act to do to be the best local employer, and a lot of our employers are really interested in how am I going to be a training partner and how can I invest in you as a young person, either being part of an apprenticeship program or of course it's a job, but you're also getting a training credential. But also how can I be a partner in upskilling you when you are tired of being on the CNC machine and there's an opening in management, right? Again, that comes with a cost, so we're constantly in a balancing act. But our employers really do want to be the employer of choice in the community and need a lot of help and partnership to be able to do that. So please let me know if your school would like to have an employer of a local person, especially a small business.
Thank you. Jason, since you're down at Southcenter, how do you balance a living wage versus entry level?
Yeah, I think especially right now, kind of like in the state of our economy, it's getting very difficult, especially for our small owners. You will see them start juggling a lot of different ideas around, right? So one of the biggest things would be like production costs. What they can do to lower production costs, what they can do to increase the value of their product. And what we see is a lot of these small owners are going from kind of ownership to kind of owner-operators. And the raising wages not only puts a strain kind of on the smaller owners, but kind of everybody in general. So we see a lot of people struggling, trying to balance with this new minimum wage and the cost of living, right? And I've seen it's increasingly difficult for owners to be able to afford that right now. So especially post-pandemic, we've seen a lot of ownerships. There's a lot of different loans that went out to kind of help supplement that. But what we're seeing is they definitely have to balance kind of their costs, their bottom line, and kind of what they're doing to increase the value of an employee. So the amount that they're able to do, what kind of tasks they're able to take on, and also increasing productivity.
I will add to that. This question is really interesting because it's a very, I think, hard balance for our industry, but also our small businesses to keep up with the rising cost of living. So I think for the WDC, one of the things that we've been doing with, our employer engagement is like we can also be working on if employers cannot, small businesses cannot raise those wages, there are other ways in terms of how we can bring those jobs, better jobs for people. We're thinking through what does worker well-being look like, for some of these jobs that perhaps are not able to pay, those given wages, but perhaps it is about worker safety. Perhaps it is about, better benefits, other ways in terms of how you can make those jobs better for people. And I think that's also part of the conversation. It's not just wages. There are other ways in terms of how they would be working together, to make those jobs better to receive.
This next question is to our labor partners. Tessa, this one's going to head to you here. Which industries are facing the greatest shortage of skilled workers, and how can schools help close that gap?
Yeah, thank you. So let's get the data. Industries are the biggest options for these projections for growth include IT, transportation and warehousing, and healthcare. And the WDC has done a lot of work with the health industry leadership table, and that's something that's come up a lot about a need for more fellows in nursing and behavioral health and other fields like that. I think there are a couple things that come to mind in terms of how schools can help. So one is we've seen a lot of success in partnering with folks who are working in schools. The Washington Alliance of Better Schools comes to mind as somebody we partnered with on healthcare work, and doing a big event where they bring in high school students to get exposure to lots of different roles and jobs in the healthcare field, not just in things like pharmacies and things that are a little less traditional in like thinking about healthcare. And then the other thing that came to mind when we were talking about the skills conversation is when we were looking at the data, some of the soft skills that came up the most were things like communication and taking initiative and problem solving. And those are things that I think I feel like I learned in school from an early age, and I'm assuming that our schools are teaching folks, no matter what the topic is, learn how to follow through and do things on time and communicate clearly. So I feel like there's a few ways. One, looking for more of those intentional partnerships with schools to get exposure to different careers early, but also continuing to build on the soft skills that are being important no matter what issue we're in.
Well, as far as the trades go, the unions go, we're kind of caught at a little bit of a crossroads. As you can see, interest rates weren't what they were back in 2020. I bought a house, I got 3% for it, right? But so you're seeing a lot of the interest rates have gone up. Private investment has dried up kind of in our area. So we're not seeing huge high rises. You know, we were number one there in the country for the longest time for amount of cranes swinging in Seattle. And so you're seeing a lot of that dry up, but you're also seeing with some large investments from the federal level in our infrastructure. And being in the construction industry long enough to know that you see ebbs and flows in a lot of things. When private investment is up, you see a lot of that money and the economy growing there. And then when private investment goes down, you see infrastructure kind of catch up, right? So we build up and then we catch up with infrastructure. I wish it was the other way around, but so there's a lot of investment in infrastructure right now, but we are seeing kind of our out of work list or period kind of rising a little bit because we haven't got a lot of that money kind of from the federal level. Hopefully everything we're hearing that this administration is still allowing the infrastructure dollars to kind of flow out. But we haven't kind of caught up yet. So we do have kind of a rising number of skilled trade workers that are out of work right now. And hoping that we catch up with the infrastructure piece of it. And then if we can, a lot of the renewable sector, the renewable energy stuff, where we can get those projects and stuff rolling, will be real good.
I'll just add, kind of from a high level perspective, we need to be cautious when we talk about shortages, because not all shortages are saying, it's important to distinguish between cyclical shortages, structural shortages. There are moments in the economy when, everyone's buying consumer goods and we have a shortage of truckers or warehouse workers, and that fades in a year or two. And then that's separate from the longer term shortages that have in our economy. You think about, things like healthcare, some of the vocational trades. Those are shortages because of the long education and training lags, in some cases because of the quality of work. So again, when we're talking about shortages, let's not group them all together. There's ones that are the boom and bust cycle, and then there's shortages that are longer term, more durable nature. Just wanted to add one thing. So I mentioned that earlier. I mean, the construction industry, we are an aging workforce, and we have a ton of folks that are eligible to retire, but they just haven't retired because their skills and they're needed, their mentorship, just to comments earlier, are needed. And that's why it's huge that we can build the pathways to get younger in our industry. And I know AI has been talked about before, but I don't see a lot of robots or whatever hammer nails and put buildings together and stuff like that. So we still need these jobs in the construction industry. So stop raisers.
I'm actually going to ask our educational leaders, and based off of those comments, how are you, or how are your districts or the higher education supporting that?
Well, I will say one of the things that we've done in terms of our work is we make sure that those skills that we talked about, the soft skills like communication, problem solving, initiative, we try very hard to institute some of those elements in the work. Student leadership classes, we have advisories, all of these things that we do to support some of those soft skills that we're trying to build up. And then I think the other thing, I think it is critical that we bring in the worker force into the classrooms. So we do, it's some of our, a lot of some of our classes, especially with robotics, with things, right, it is really hands-on. Those are the most exciting presentations we have. You see the passion in the students, we see the excitement, they love working with their hands, they love problem solving. You get to see it in those demonstrations about them problem solving, working together as a team, and thinking about those real moment of how to work together and build the best out of those things. So we're building those experiences, and at the same time, we also have to continue to improve.
I was just going to say from an employment services perspective as well, many of the students are currently in volunteer job sites. which was helping develop studying skills that they need kind of to enter way to found a position. They're able to use those skills on their resumes or like come with experience already. So I think continuing to help students go to these volunteer sites to have great communities that we can work with, at different businesses that we can work with. I think it would really benefit the student force have those skills to put on resumes so that they're coming in with what they need and continuing to support them in their and I think their studies.
Yeah, and as much as I think this conversation centered around, the future workforce trying to do, then I just have to go back to the basics of education, and we are really working hard in Highline to ensure that our students can read at grade level. The recent National Assessment of Educational Progress was released, a couple months ago, and of over 12,000 school districts in this country, 140 of them are back to pre-pandemic levels. So we are still dealing with the effects of the pandemic in our school system. So one of our key priorities is literacy. And so we are really working hard to ensure that our students are able to read at grade level, because we know that will then give them access to math and the other subjects that they need. And one of the unique things that we're doing is at the secondary level is that all of our content teachers are really learning the skills around literacy and how they teach students how to read, how they teach their students how to analyze text and really think about using that information in a different way. And that is something that is really unique and different, because most often that is fallen upon the language arts teachers. But if 30% of your students are coming in ninth grade and they're reading below grade level, that becomes a system issue that we have to resolve and solve for. So as Deepak mentioned earlier around the pandemic and the effects of it, we are still dealing with that. And so we are still working hard to ensure that we are fulfilling our basic essential function, which ensure our students are prepared for the future by being able to read today.
I wanted to build on that one question from the student panelists about how do we make these connections sustainable over time to build that network for themselves. And one of the things we're doing with our learners in our professional continuing education programs, besides what they bring to the table from their own experience and whatever work they're doing, connect them to professional associations and the regular meetings that these associations have. So for example, the transportation clubs of Tacoma in Seattle, great avenues, great opportunities for people to be able to go, to learn, to meet other people in the industry, to make these relationships sustainable. I've seen people in these associations be a part of them for years and develop their communities. So it's a one big resource that we're providing to our students, that education, what resources, association meetings, groups are out there.
Thank you so much for that. Deepak, you look like you're going to add to that.
I was just going to say that as employers, you play a complementary role here too. That is keeping the partnerships going. Providing that exposure, as I meant earlier, but not just that, when students come in, maybe they start into a level position, but there are training education funds as well. It's not just exclusive to the healthcare industry, they just get honored. That allows them to start in an entry-level position, but then work their way up to master's degree, bachelor's degree, or what have you. So we have a responsibility to kind of support our educational institutions and really connecting with students from the didactics to the practical to the profession.
What current policies or upcoming initiatives are focused on aligning K-12 education with workforce needs of our region? So, Jesse, I'm going to have you start there.
That's a great question. I'd be remiss to not say, I think right now, obviously, we're dealing with a tough budget situation in the state. We have a $16 billion shortfall while trying to focus on our obligations for pensions and the budget stabilization account or rainy day fund. That being said, I've loved what Highline and Tukwila are doing. One of the things Jayden mentioned, though, was that meeting students where they're at the school level. And so I think former Governor Inslee had a program called Career Connect Washington. We have tried to expand those dollars so that we have more programs like the Clear Commission program, Federal Wave, at other schools. I also think that we need to focus on financial education, financial literacy for our kids. That has to be a foundation. In our state, only 1 out of every 2 students receive some level of financial education. And so that has to be incorporated so that they can deal with some of the financial challenges that we're seeing.
And then finally, I'll say, I think this year the state has tried to expand access to those training programs in high schools. I think that's coming. Our office and the treasurer's office has a program called the Baby Bonds Pilot. So if you're between 18 or 25 years old and born on Apple Health or our state's Medicaid system 2 decades ago, you could get access to a $25,000 grant to go towards starting a business, higher educational, including training apprenticeships, or owning property, home ownership, which are the 3 biggest wealth building tools that exist. And so that's just a pilot because, of course, of our budget crisis coming out of the treasurer's account. But this will provide 40 students across our state with this opportunity for that. So hope in the future, in the next legislative cycle, we can see that expand. But I think we need to support our small businesses. We need to listen and partner, create more multi-layered coalitions, between the unions, between government. There's not enough public-private partnerships that do that. And that's one of the goals this year of our office, is to get around the state and see where the needs are, not just in King County and Pierce, the big counties, but over Eastern Washington as well.
And I'm currently working with the Kent School District, part of the outreach program that helps students that have disabilities transition to high school to the workforce. This has been such a wonderful path to work with students because it would have provided these opportunities to learn these skills that I was talking about, working with the community and these volunteer job sites. I think they probably would not have the opportunity to go there to employ those skills. So I think it's been wonderful to watch students blossom. Also, knowing that our students have a 36% retention rate from Washington State. Most students that are quitting state employment stay there, but after really we're trying to educate employers about students that we have to produce, and they just take extra training, but knowing that there will workers that are willing to train just things.
Obviously, kind of the budget situation, both at the state and federal level, is what to shape what it's feasible. And you think back to the cycles of surges in funding and the detraction in funding we've had over the past, so should be decades. Innovation happens, obviously, when there are funds available, but there's different ways that they should happen in very, very tight times. So I think that's obviously one that we're in right now, probably the next year or so. It's that scarcity readers, and of course, it's to think through, just different ways to deliver value for our students.
I'm going to throw this one back at our districts and our higher ed, though. What policies? I know that I've seen you guys on TV down there on the Hill testifying. So what could we say? We have the podium. I'm gonna your magic wand right here is what can we share with our reps and to help us get to that next level?
Well, I'll go back to I definitely get the funding issue in the state is going to be a real challenge for us. And unfortunately, Washington doesn't lead the nation in terms of funding for education. And so, we have really been working with our legislators this year to increase funding for special education and then just the basics of material supplies and operational cost. Those are just the basics of what we need to be able to run our school districts. But unfortunately, we are not going to see the amount of money that we were anticipating coming out of this legislative session. So we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and really think about coming together with another plan to really try to advocate, because our state constitution clearly states that funding education is a paramount responsibility of the state, and it is not happening right now. And so, yesterday we were on a call with our fellow superintendents, and the impacts of this are going to be job losses and loss of opportunities for our students. And with one of the things I was thinking about yesterday, Dr. Pedroza, after our superintendent's meeting, which is both King County and Pierce County, if we actually take the amount of dollars that are being reduced at the school district level, the amount of positions going to be lost, it's going to be pretty impactful. And so we're going to have to really re-strategize and think about how we can advocate more to fulfill that paramount duty.
And I agree. We've been testifying on the Hill, trying to really have the state really recognize that and share the gaps of funding for just 3 or 4 areas. So that doesn't count all the areas of funding. But so many of us, just in 3 areas, we have probably calculated millions of dollars of gaps in funding. And as a district who had to deal with that last year, really balancing, how do we do cuts and prioritize our goals? For example, college and career. Like, how do we do that? So what I'm trying to think through are what are policy changes that we can think about. And I think I'm going to go back to the equity piece. A lot of our students in high poverty schools and students with high needs, they need different thinking, right, around how do we can ensure. So just a couple ideas. One, like, how do we offer some maybe tax incentives for our business partners that are actually thinking about and offering students with specific low-income students specifically to support them in the industry and having them have apprenticeships and experience those. And another one to think about equity-based workplace learning. How can we ensure things like transportation, meals, attire, right? Those kinds of things that are actually barriers for students don't get in the way. Those are just two ideas of policy changes. But when we think about equity, how do we really center equity in these policy developments? And then getting back to how do we ensure we have ample funding for education so that I'm not having to decide who I'm going to cut from the College and Career Center or apprenticeship group. Like that, those are really hard decisions that we have to make. And I don't want to make them, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep those cuts as far away from students as I can. And many of our districts are put in positions where we have to do that. And it's really challenging and it's extremely difficult.
Earlier, we talked about AI and ChatGPT, and this is just some quick open discussion. How are we using tools like ChatGPT and AI to improve education, recruitment, and retention?
One of the things we're kind of seeing in the industry is technology now is becoming less of a skill and more of a requirement. So as you go into the workforce, now everything like Microsoft Office, those are kind of basics now. Now, as we move forward with the evolving industry, we're using a lot more AI tools. So when it comes to tracking, when it comes to trends, when it comes to catering to any demographic, AI has become a very important tool that we've been using, especially when it comes in terms of strategy and development, especially when we're trying to strategize what the next steps for our industry should.
I can sort of speak to AI in the healthcare industry. A couple of examples include there's already ambient scribing coming into healthcare. And what that means is when you are in a doctor's office, you have the MAPs or advanced practice professionals or the doctors can connect with you. And as you are exchanging information, AI would pick up the conversation, scribe, come out of the record. So your experience will be a lot different in the healthcare setup. And it takes a lot of work with us about this as well. Oh, sorry. And then another example that we currently have employed, and it goes back to the Microsoft Google products, is the AI assistant to help speed up the work and make things more efficient for our employees. And so we've already incorporated that as a way to really help support retention and also make the jobs of our frontline employees easier.
Terry, I'm going to throw this one back at you. That first question, when you talked about customer service, I'm like, so what does that mean? So first question, what is customer service? I saw that was a skill that students should be focusing on, but what does that really mean?
I think it comes back to probably those communications. Can you look at somebody in the eye? Can you listen to what the customer is asking for, and then be able to incorporate that? For our technicians, it's really kind of focused on listening to what the customer's problem is, and then using that to help them understand. Maybe it's an educational moment, but it may also be helping them figure out what the technical issue is in the house. So if Joe would have called me, I would have been able to help him with that internet problem and get a technician out to his house, and I'm going to follow up with him on that. That's my customer service skill, because I've listened and I will be following up. And I think it's that extra step. And I think somebody mentioned it earlier, and I'm not sure, but leading with curiosity is an important customer service skill that I think people may be kind of just afraid to take that step, or they may not feel confident in taking that step, but that's really a major item to focus on with customer experience.
Question is, I work for the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, providing scholarships for STEM students. How can we partner to expand support for students?
I'd say reach out to us. I'd love to have the conversation with you and to learn some of the work that we're doing to support our students, whether it's our secondary school redesign work that we're doing to think about how we can really bring more rigor and relevance into the lives of our students, or whether it's through our choice schools and some of the work that we're trying to do there. We have a lot of interest in that partnership. We're willing just to have that conversation with the people that really come up with some great ideas to better support our educators and students.
I'll just add that we are actually in that same process. We're doing portrait of a graduate work. What does that really mean to graduate from the school district with all the skills ready to enter into life? Those partnerships are vital. So again, just reach out, and if you want to be part of that committee or anything like that, because the more we can have robust conversations from labor, from some of these scholarship opportunities, the better we can really design the best opportunities for our students.
So for students, what is the best way to get information to you? We have job fairs and career resource workshops. Other than dropping off flyers at schools, are there better ways that we can reach you?
At our school, we did this thing called a weekly vote-up, and they sent out weekly newsletters to every student. And in these weekly newsletters, there's a section for college and career center stuff. And in it, they'll include a bunch of internship opportunities where students can apply to, trips that they offer, like sometimes it's being out-of-state sometimes, programs and events. I know, soon on May 2nd, I believe, I got asked to attend this CRC financial literacy, generational wealth workshop, which is really cool, and it's targeted for students of color or Black students, and it's those types of opportunities that the school provides for us, tells us through the newsletter or sometimes even morning announcements, which is a lot of students, which is pretty cool.
I would say the expansion of things like the Workforce Discovery Lab would really help, because that was honestly my biggest push towards getting my first job and working and entering the workforce. So just expand more programs, give students more notice, because what I've seen a lot is just there's plenty out there, but there isn't enough notice that they're on there. There isn't a giant light saying, hey, we're here.
So, Tessa, Treanna, I'm going to throw this question at you. How can we engage our students? How can we go out to them, support them in their schools, instead of just dropping off pamphlets and flyers?
Well, yeah, this is why engagement is so key. We've worked to try to not only have events that we are asking folks to come to, but how can we be more intentional to be in the spaces where people are already gathering? And this is something that comes from really my organizing background. Bringing that experience into state government has been key to be able to understand how we build that bridge, because we also have to acknowledge that particularly in state government, there's a need for us to really build trust again in global majority communities particularly. And so I think it's really important for us to be intentional about having relationships, being at spaces like this where we can not only be present and be in everyone else's space, but network and build those opportunities for us to come to the schools and to be able to speak to what we're looking for in the workforce. And kind of to some of the students' points, us being intentional about building those relationships and establishing genuine connections that are authentic and organic and allow for them to know that we are accessible to them. So, being here is super key, because I'm hoping to walk away with some great networking that we can take back to the team and make sure folks understand how to be present in these schools when you all have opportunities there, and make sure that we are, reaching out to families that are part of these school districts.
Yeah, I think another thing I would add is just doing it in partnership with folks who are trusted and very in schools and doing the work. I mentioned Washington Alliance of Better Schools, which the WC has partnered with on some stuff to directly get into schools.
I know on our youth programming side, we work with community-based organizations. So again, try to be creative and thinking about how they work to do good things. So I feel like that's, as the W's, like we're not doing all the direct services, but how do we think about ourselves as a backbone in a partner and bringing folks together? It's just opportunity specifically with the groups who are doing great work to order actually engaging in the schools. And
I just want to build on that because I think it's a key takeaway in outreach is finding those trusted partners. I know for Comcast, where we are very focused on digital skill building and making sure that our vulnerable community members have that connection. We partner with the Workforce Development Council to make sure that those folks that want to get back into education have those digital skills to kind of understand and be able to turn on that computer and know how to work it, or if they want to get into the retail space, like Jason mentioned, they have those skills. So that's not necessarily something that we have to create, but we find the partners to kind of drive that further. And many community partners, El Centro de la Raza, Asian Counseling Services, Goodwill, and many others.
Just really quickly, I wanted to, those were all amazing comments. I think for sure specificity, we have to utilize our alumni better recent grads. That's who our kids look up to. I know in our program, we partnership to bring the alumni to talk to our kids. Last year, a student just got hired by the electrical industry, making $37 an hour at the high school, came back talking about his experience. If we look at school districts in Federal Way, our biggest event of the year is elementary track meets and Saturdays. 500 plus families every Saturday at Westfield Field. They're having a financial literacy workshop on that Saturday that I'll be attending. And then finally, our coaches. Recently at Federal Way, Thomas Jefferson High School had a program called Medicine, because it was a Black and folks of diversity that are becoming phlebotomists, medical assistants, things of that nature. And they brought the coaches, all the football and basketball teams, brought their entire teams to that event, where we had Morehouse College from Atlanta come out and talk to our kids. So we have to utilize folks that are in the fabric of our community better, our credible messengers, Treanna and Tessa and Cherry said. So I think that's a very important. Good stuff.
So this next question is around wages. With prevailing wage requirements to work with the school district, how can small businesses overcome the wage burden when hiring entry-level students?
Yeah, I think one of the things small businesses really need to do is kind of focus on the value of the employee, right? When it comes to large turnover rates, especially in a lot of these industries, we see a lot of employers are wasting money on, I would say, hiring versus retention, right? So with the revolving door, there's an increase in expenses when it comes to hiring, right? When it comes to programs, training, development. In the long run, small businesses kind of need to see the value of retention and paying people fair wage. So I believe when companies hire people at a fair wage, it increases retention. If they put the time and development into these employees, it can really drive up the value of, whoever they're working with, whoever suppliers are. And instead of focusing on this revolving door and only focusing on minimum wage, I believe we need to focus on the value of these employees and also making these jobs more attractive and creating a better environment for people within to stay and develop within a company or an industry.
So to that question, yes, school districts are required to pay prevailing wage on their projects. But one thing a lot of people don't know, they don't use this to their advantage much, is those projects also require 15% apprenticeship utilization rates. And so the only way to pay less than a prevailing wage is to use a state certified apprentice. So partnering with either labor unions, there's union and non-union options. Actually, both of them are being represented right downstairs right now as the war ticks up a little bit with everybody getting ready. But taking advantage in that 15% floor of the hours in the projects is a floor. So managing your project, managing and bringing out apprentices to build the next generation of workforce is very, very key on that. So real quick, because I'm getting like 5 phone calls now because I thought I was going to be done at 9 and I got to run. But I invite everybody here, especially the districts, to come down and network and build some of those connections with. We have almost 100 employers down there. We have several building trades outside. So come down there, get some contacts, and bring these folks that are huge employers in the region as a part of your advisory boards. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So this question is going to go to Madison. How can we ensure that students with intellectual disabilities and autism has access to higher education and training that leads to career jobs rather than forever entry-level, low-wage positions?
That is such a good question. I think it's continuing to educate those that are in the local community. That could be job businesses, that could be other school districts, that could be even parents. I think a lot of tourist parents, they can assist their student a little bit more as well. So I think definitely educating different businesses, community members about what it is to have a disability, what it leads to, what disability that has a disability, and that literally they're the same for all of us. It just requires different steps. So continuing to advocate for people, continuing to see life through the digital lenses.
So that I would say too that if you are an employer, or like for us in state government, we're working to increase our understanding of access and accessibility. And you really have to be ready for, opportunities around reasonable accommodations so that you are opening up the doors for other able folks to understand that their experience is important, their expertise is important in these environments, and make it more easily accessible for them to apply to your jobs. And so that's some of the things that we've been doing, where we recognize that some folks work better by doing maybe like a video interview instead of needing to put everything down on paper, and opening up those kinds of different opportunities, utilizing technology to the benefit of a diverse workforce, I think is also important and key. And gives people a little bit more, like, let's relax, right? Like, let's remove some of that pressure around them applying and ensure that they have, direct pathways to not only have the technology that helps them in their jobs, but they understand that we are there to actually support their success in these roles.
So this next question is, as an educator, I've noticed that the students we need to reach most are not attending classes. How can we connect with these at-risk students so we can help them build hope for the future?
I'll just say, I think that's a wonderful question. And I think for me, for our students who are in that type of situation, to me, is a relationship gap. There's a loss of trust that's been established. And so how can we create the opportunities for us to be able to rebuild that trust? Because I have a fundamental core belief, value that our students want greatness. They want to be amazing, and we have to figure out how we can connect with them in a way to figure out where they are, what their needs are, because many times there's situations that may not be coming to school or are struggling to fit in. There's some other things that are going on, and so that's where our counselors provide great services. That's where our college and career specialists can make those connections, because many times if a student gets in trouble or has some kind of situation, sometimes our first response is that, well, we want to get them back on track, we want to get them in their education classes, but really what they need is some fundamental support around just like, what is going on? What do you need? What can we do to better support you? And so I think that's going to be an important part for us to be thinking about, because we want to rebuild that trust. And then I did see one of the questions that was up there, Joe, so I just want to bridge a little bit on there around how could we reframe our perspective around this budget deficit. The reality is that it is a reality that we're facing. So if we want to build more connections with our students that may be not coming to school or are struggling in school, we need staff to support that, because our teachers are fundamentally at the core doing everything they can to support our students. But there's times that we need other staff, whether it's counselors, college and career specialists. There's a number of positions that are out there that we need in our school systems to help support our students so that they can help our educators make those connections to ensure our students are finding someone that they can be connected to. And then the final thing I'll say is that one thing that's really been going through my mind a lot is I think about our students that are on the fringe, that are struggling, that are just dealing with, whether it's personal issue or just issues with their friends group. I keep thinking to myself, the question that we need to be asking as adults is, who do I need to become in order to connect with that student at a different level? So who do I need to become in order to connect with that student at a level that they're going to trust me and want to be able to share what's going on with them so we can help support them in the best way possible.
And I would just add that attendance is a priority for us. I mean, I know for all my schools, they have a goal, right, because of what attendance, and even in elementary. We have to start building a habit of practice in our schools that we're actually understanding why they're not coming, because every situation's different, and making sure that we have a plan in place to support that. And how do we involve the families? Because we can't do it without our families. And sometimes our families don't even know what to do themselves because they're dealing with some very serious issues, especially in our region. Many of our families who are partially documented right now, we have families living, their families are scared right now. And so we have to figure out how we can support them differently. And we also have to learn from the best practices of schools that do have great attendance. So what's going on there? I think it's important that we prioritize that, because the more we can get students to come in, engage, and I think do the work with our adults, I think is critical, because that'll actually lead to better attendance in college, better attendance, develop those skills and habits. But we need to figure out how to wrap around that and support into each individual family and student.
So I'm going to conclude this, our Q&A. I'm going to give an opportunity for our panelists to maybe give us a 30-second, maybe 45 seconds to share with us your last thoughts or actual advice that you would love to share with the audience that they can take home. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think we've talked about so much today, and ultimately, connection is key. You know, I really appreciate what was shared earlier about continuing these conversations, continuing to build relationship, be in partnership with one another, supporting each other's efforts to make our, connection to students and the workforce even more stronger. So I personally am open to those kinds of connections. I know for us at the Office of Equity, we are really serious about building these relationships and connections. So I'll end with that. I think it's really important. And thank you so much to the Southside Seattle Chamber for, doing this and bringing us all together.
I would say continue to invest in the chambers. The chambers are the hub for connectivity, for helping businesses and small businesses be successful, which offer those job opportunities. They partner with the education systems and make sure and help with those policies. So, even as a student, kind of connecting with the chambers, there are kind of youth organizations and efforts up and down a lot of the chambers that we connect with and are members of, given across our service territory. So thank you, Sammy and Seattle Southside, for this event and bringing us together in this new environment that I thought went very, very well.
I agree with what it was said. I think this is a great conversation and really great to start. It's like sitting here with everybody on local channel and DJ. I'm happy to continue those moving forward. And I feel like sometimes because she's really big, but if we, we don't beat this up a little bit something and make progress, then so really value those societal books then it's forward and can stay connected over the course of the year. Thank you.
Same, I think let's continue this conversation and just continue to explore new partnerships at a both. So I think it's an opportunity for us to take outside box. I mean, there's a lot of challenges I'm at, but I think also a little bit of opportunities, and we're stronger together. It's fun to me. Yeah, continue to go forward with an open mind. All these yoga students have so much to offer, so give them an opportunity. And hearing everyone's thoughts on this panel has been amazing, and everything had ever past out and excited.
Easy. And if you're looking for ways to engage and connect with us, really if on our Highline College, the K-12, and our community-based organizations, because we're all out there, we're working with this community, and we're here to help make those communities.
I think just a paradigm shift so that we're purpose-driven and partnership-focused. I always say if you could just find 10 families or 10 kids that you can personally connect to, I'm definitely a fan of the Reach One, Teach One model. I think that's a start.
I really enjoy these conversations. I love the amalgamation of ideas that we all have. I think we should continue this further. And I also like the learning experience it's been for myself personally, where I have heard ideas that I haven't put that in my action. That was
Yeah, I very much like these conversations. I think as part of the industry business, we really need to work a lot more closely with the education, especially being clear and concise and cut our expectations. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen a lot of entry-level jobs that require 3 to 5 years experience. So it's definitely managing those expectations, and who better to tell you what we need as the industry. Thank you.
Yeah, one of my former bosses used to always challenge us and just tell us, don't wait, lead. And so for our business partner said, please lead with us, reach out to us. We want to build more public type of partnerships, so reach out to us and be about how can you provide more support for our students? Can you do a lunch and learn? Career opportunities? Come and visit, do mentorship, internships. What are the possibilities that we can do to support our students and our communities?
My last request for all of us is to encourage learners, all of us here and the others that we advise, to not be afraid of failing. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be afraid of trying a new skill and studying a new applied knowledge. Let's encourage them to do that, because that's part of the process. Be able to face that fear, do a little failing, and then we'll succeed.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Maybe slightly different approach that I would take is just talking to students directly. You kind of to yourself, this is a big transition, stepping into the workforce. It's a scary period. But also be kind to one another, because together we'll find that you'll go further. And then also be connected, because the Workforce Discovery Lab programs like that, Pathways programs, which Jenny Mason, Francisco, and Folk has, or other industries now, they are there specifically for you. And so by staying connected, you are able to access things, and that helps with the transition and impact.
I would say, there's been a lot of discussion about budget. This is going to be the most significant tax increase for business and families in the state in a long time. So I think we need to have a long-term perspective about what these partnerships look like, especially as financial resources get really tight. A lot of the programs that have been talked about that connect students with work opportunities are cut this year. We have no idea what's going to happen day to day at the federal level. So I think building relationships and building trust with a long-term perspective is key. And part of that is, as we look to the graduating class, not this one, she's incredible. Someone please hire our students here. As we look to the graduating class of 2030, there are some very key metrics. We have 200,000 extra people in the workforce who don't have any type of credential. There's not enough jobs for those folks. We need them to have credentials. So we need students in our graduating class, 45% of them can have bachelor's degrees, 20% of them can have an AA degree, 20% of them can have some type of post-secondary credential, and that leaves the rest of them to only have a high school degree. So when you're thinking about in terms of that, as you're looking at graduating classes, those are the metrics and goals we should have for that group. And if we get there, that's fantastic. Our economy will be strong and our community will be strong. Right?
I just echo what Dr. Duran said, is that we actually have to have strong partnerships, and we have to change with that. And I think that a big thing is come with an open mind and thinking about how we can remove barriers. Some of the great partnerships we've developed have been the ones that said, hey, we have this money or we have this opportunity, let's work together and co-design what that looks like together, right? So, because every district's unique, every school is unique, and making sure that we're really addressing the needs with the students. So being really flexible, but also really being clear what you can offer, and so that we can work together and to build opportunities for our students.
I think the last thing I would like to add, as a student perspective, from a student perspective, we're always asked, how are you getting future ready? But I think the thing I would like to ask for adults and industry professionals is, how are you getting student ready? Are you opening up these programs, these internships, these volunteering positions? And if not, what's stopping you? I always wonder that. And I think if we took action, we can always have these conversations that they're great, but words don't hold value, actions do. So speaking on what we say is, I think, the most truthful part for us and all the students and engineers.
Almost lost word, no pressure. I'd just say, kind of listening to the comments, reminds me that careers are not linear, and frontier knowledge is always moving, but it feels like it's moving and accelerating fast right now. Being a student is such a special time. We're always students, and we don't always have kind of the luxury of being a student our focus. So, the ever-changing needs of the labor market are going to require us to be a student, spend time in our career, be a student, and that kind of back and forth is going to be a feature moving forward. And everything is a student mindset, and kind of let's create a world where that ever constant learning is realistic.
Thank you all. That was really powerful. So we've covered a lot today. What's working, where the gaps are, and what needs to evolve. But here's the thing. None of this matters if we don't do something about it. Okay? To quote Marshawn Lynch, it's about that action, boss. So let's get to that action. Here's the reality. Schools can't do it alone. They need access to real-world opportunities, curriculum, support, and updated resources. Businesses can't do it alone. You need job-ready candidates, but you've got to be part of the exposure and training that gets them there. Students can't do it alone. They need guidance, mentors, and hands-on experience that shows them what's possible. Policymakers need directions. We must ensure education funding, program development, and legislation are designed with input from all of you. Workforce partners must connect adults, aligning training with employer demand and creating smoother pathways for students and careers. Earlier, Josh threw out a challenge, and I'm going to piggyback on that. Here's my challenge to every one of you. Find just one way, just one, to be part of the solution. Our business leaders, can you offer internships, job shadows, apprenticeships, or career coaching? Educators, can you build more industry connections into your curriculum or bring professionals into the classrooms? Students, I want you to take that next step. Ask for career exposure, connect with a mentor, or seek out real-world experiences. To our policymakers, can you shape legislation that supports career-connected learning and make sure funding follows need and the opportunity? And then to our workforce partners, can you coordinate efforts across sectors, connect programs to pipelines, and help streamline access to resources? In 5 years, when we look back, will we see a workforce that is more prepared, more connected, and more empowered? Or will we be having the same conversation? That answer depends on all of us. Because when we invest in our students, we're not just investing in their future, we're investing in their businesses, our communities, and our shared successes. So this isn't someone else's job, it's our job. Let's make this happen together. So please join me in giving our incredible panelists a round of applause. And another one, just a big thank you to our Southside Chamber of Commerce and all of the partners that have made this possible. Yeah, thank you so much for being here today.